Hi guys, and welcome back to our IELTS course. In today's lesson, we'll be focusing on IELTS writing again. It's going to be about Academic Task 1. However, this time we will learn about diagrams. Diagrams are different from graphics, and that is why we'll review different tips and strategies how to complete this task successfully. Before I begin explaining about process diagrams, I would like to mention that a process diagram is not as common as graphic essay on the IELTS test, but I believe it is very important that you know how to complete this type of essay and you are 100% prepared for it. Anyways, a process diagram may show the steps in a process, or it may show changes in a place over time. Your main task is to describe the steps in the process or changes that occurred before and after. In the following slides, I will be explaining different tips, strategies, and steps how to complete this task successfully. In this slide, we'll have a brief overview to the Academic Writing Task 1 about diagrams. Diagram essay looks quite similar to graphic essay, but it has different requirements to accomplish during this task. You'll be given the same amount of time, 20 minutes, to complete this task. You should spend your time in the following order. Step 1, planning your essay. It can take you about 5 minutes, but this is a very important step. So make sure to spend at least 5 minutes to read your prompt and understand your diagram. Step 2 is writing your essay. You should spend about 12 minutes to do so. And the final step 3, it's a step for revising your essay, for which you should spend at least 3 minutes. And when it comes to the length of the words for this essay, it has to be 150 words, just like previous graphic essay, and you shouldn't write less than that, but you can write more than that. So keep that in mind and make sure to write at least 150 words. And in our following slides, we'll be learning different tips, strategies, and how to successfully accomplish this task. Before you'll begin writing your diagram essay, keep in mind the following tips that can help you to succeed completing this task. Firstly, make sure that you understand all parts of the process before you start planning. Secondly, write only what you see in the diagram. Thirdly, always plan before you start writing. Next, do not add extra information that is not presented in the diagram. And finally, do not skip steps and important details. It is very important that you include every single step that is presented in the diagram. In order to receive a good score, you need to do the following things. First of all, you have to make sure you address all parts of the task and you accurately describe each step or change. Do not begin describing or writing or planning until you really understand your diagram. And the following tip for you would be to make a meaningful comparison. What it means is that you have to really understand which steps are very important. Of course, when it comes to the process, you have to describe every single step. However, when you'll do comparison before and after especially, or contrast, it's very important that you are not talking about unimportant details, but you are only writing about important and meaningful changes that happen throughout the time. Another part that is very important, it's ending your paragraph with a brief overview of the information. And again, your grammar and spelling punctuation are very important because this is writing and these are important points for good writing. So make sure you have good grammar, you are checking your spelling, and punctuation, of course. It's very important, knowing where to put your period and comma and so on. Again, in order for you to get a better score, so make sure you have 4 different types of sentences that we discussed earlier, such as simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. Having those sentences will really help you to boost your score, so try to make sure you have at least one of each. And the last one, we have the last very important tip, It's writing in your own words. So make sure you do not copy and memorize some essays, and you do write with your own words. And try not to use crazy academic words that you are not sure about, you don't feel confident about. Just use the words that you feel confident and good about. And these are important tips to remember in order to succeed completing this test. Alright guys, so this is our step 1. For step 1, you should spend about 5 minutes on planning your essay before you start writing. Planning will make sure you include the most important details from the graph. I know a lot of you don't like planning. I used to hate planning too in the past, but this is actually a very important point. I think I mentioned that at least 10 times by now. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about addressing the task and what it means. Addressing the task. So in task 1, you'll see a diagram describing a process, how to make something. So how to make something, it can be even how to make a phone, how to build a phone, or how to make coffee, or how to make a plane. So you might see different diagrams, and some of them might look a little bit crazy too, but you have to determine whether you have a process, how to do or how to make something, or you have changes that occurred at a particular place. For example, there can be a comparison about a place in 1960s compared to 1980s, and how this particular place changed during these 20 years. Sometimes it can be better, sometimes it can be worse. So that's your task, to explain what happened. And these are 2 types of diagrams you will have, and your task, addressing the task, is determining what kind of diagram you have, whether it's a process or changes that happened at a particular place. Okay guys, so here we have our sample academic task 1 diagram prompt, and as you see, we have a prompt, and I'm going to go ahead and read it for you. The diagram below shows the area around the river before and after the flood. Again, so you see this diagram and you see 2 pictures. So it says Blackstone River, and you have before and after. So you see there's some changes happened, and I feel like those were not very positive changes, but this is your task, to identify what happened and describe what happened in this diagram. So as you see, this diagram is going to be changes, about changes. And when I'm addressing and determining the task, so I am addressing this diagram about changes. And in my body paragraph, I'll be explaining before and after, and how much this place changed. And again, you have this requirement that IELTS test is asking you: summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparison where relevant. So again, it is very similar to your graphic that we previously discussed. So you would have to do the same things: report and summarize the most important features. The following diagram looks a little bit more challenging. So, and as you guys see, this diagram doesn't have 2 pictures, but has 1 big picture that has a lot of details. So in this diagram, you can see that this is a process and how wind turbine works. But again, do not begin writing or planning without reading your prompt and analyzing your diagram. So make sure to read your prompt, which states the following: the diagram below shows a process generating electricity with a wind turbine. So here we see, and it actually clearly states, it shows a process generating electricity with a wind turbine. So you have a process, and it explains how electricity is being generated with a wind turbine. So you have a lot of steps from 1 to 12, and it explains step by step how things are done. And I know it can be really challenging at first, and you might be a little bit overwhelmed and scared seeing this type of diagram, but trust me, with a lot of practice you'll get better, and you just need to know how to accomplish this kind of task. All you need to do, as I mentioned previously, follow every single step, do not skip the most important changes, and do not skip important steps in this case, and just follow the plan. And again, just like your graphic and a previous before and after about changes essay, diagram, so you have the same type of requirements. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparison where relevant. And that's it for our process kind of diagram. So this is just an example for you to see.